Happy Friday, Grace Community Church. Pastor Billy here with you. It's your daily devotional to end the week. Daily Devo 49 today. And we're going to be back in John chapter 18 today, finishing John chapter 18. And remember, the past couple of days we've seen Jesus get arrested. We saw Jesus yesterday go before the high priest. And we saw that yesterday in Peter's denials of Jesus yesterday. And today we're going to see Jesus be taken to the Roman governor Pilate. And we're going to see a conversation he has with Pilate. So John chapter 18, verses 28 through 40 today. Let's start reading. John, verse 28. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man? If he were not a criminal," they replied, "would we have handed him over to you?" Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. So we see here Jesus, he's taken to Pilate, and the reason the Jewish leaders took Jesus to Pilate is because they wanted him to execute Jesus. There are two different laws you have here. You have the Jewish law, the law of Moses. The Jewish leaders would be the judges, the Sanhedrin, Jewish council. But then you have the Roman law. And the Romans, who were in control at this time, much of the Roman Empire was controlling much of the world at this time, and were in control over the Jewish people. And so they bring him to Pilate for Pilate to find him guilty, because the Romans, they could execute people. And the Jewish people wanted Jesus gone. We know this. And so they bring him to Jesus, and Pilate, or bring him to Pilate, and Pilate is asking, "What are you charging him of? What's he guilty of?" And then Pilate goes to Jesus and he asks him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus, he says, "My kingdom is not of this world." And so Pilate says, "So you are a king. You are a king then." And there's this conversation with it, and Pilate is kind of trying to figure out, because the reason he's asking him that, the reason he was focusing on if Jesus was a king, is because then he would be a threat to the Roman Empire. And so Pilate was looking for why should we be concerned with him, and he's trying to find out. And this is what the Jewish leaders were telling Pilate, is that he's saying he's our king. He's going to cause an uprising. This is what they would tell him in this. And Jesus is trying to point out that, look, my kingdom isn't of this world. You're looking at it from a worldly perspective. I'm not a king here. I'm a king somewhere, though. And Pilate is at this point trying to find a reason. He says, "I don't see a reason to find him guilty." And he then asks Jesus, again, he's asking Jesus about being a king, and Jesus changes the subject from that to being about why Jesus came. He said he came to testify to truth. And he said, everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And Pilate says a question that I think is so good. He says, what is truth? That's the final words he says to Jesus. What is truth? And he walks away. He leaves Jesus and he goes back. He says, I don't find him guilty at all. And he says, but it's your custom, Passover, for me to release one prisoner. You want me to release Jesus, the King of the Jews? And they shout back, no, give us Barabbas. I mean, Barabbas, he was a murderer. He had taken part in an uprising. He had killed people. He was a murderer. And they are choosing for the Rome to release a man who was convicted of murder over Jesus, who was innocent of everything. And this is where we end today. And today's takeaway in this all, and is this. I want to go back to that question that Pilate asked Jesus. Jesus said he came to testify to truth. And everyone on side of truth believes him, listens to him. And Pilate said, what is truth? And this is a question that so many people are asking, what is truth? And people ask this all the time, what is truth? And here's the thing, is that truth is perfect. It's perfection. It is perfect. It just is. It's truth. There is nothing flawed about it. It is the truth. And now here's the thing, is because truth can't come from people. It can't come from people because we're so flawed. We're flawed. We are tainted. We taint truth by our imperfections. Our truth can be based off of our feelings, our motives, our pride, our sin, our emotions, all these things that taint our own truth, because you'll hear people say, well, I have my own truth, but their truth is tainted by those things. So truth can only come from a perfect being, and the only perfect being is God. So this is why it's so important. This is why we lean on God's word, not on our feelings and our emotions. This is why we lean on God's word and not things we see in the media and on things we read online. This is why we lean on God's word over scientists who, have you noticed that scientists constantly change? They'll say one thing. I mean, we've seen it with the COVID-19. One thing is said, another week we were wrong. This is it. That's not truth then. Truth is never wrong. God's word is the same. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's truth. It doesn't change. Truth doesn't change. It just is. And so I want to remind us of this today, that the only truth comes from God. So when Pilate says, what is truth? It's God. In fact, Jesus said himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, right? And so Jesus stated that himself. Truth only comes from God, church. That's the takeaway today. Church, have a great weekend. Look forward to seeing you this Sunday online, our final online-only service. June 7th, we are looking to relaunch, open the doors for limited capacity, and we'll tell you more details this Sunday about that and what that'll look like. But I hope you guys have a great weekend. God bless you guys. We'll see you on Sunday.